America's National Park of Speed will be the perfect place for a day where we try to find out who is the fastest. It's time for qualifying as we get ready to watch the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America Cayman Series by Yokohama. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is former racer Joey Atterbury and sports car driver Ashley Freiberg. Joey, a driver and fan favorite, it's good to be back at Road America.
It is a fantastic place to come and visit if you're a fan, and even better if you're a racing car driver. And let's take a look at exactly this track map that we've got here. 14 turns, 4.048 miles, and over 150 feet of elevation change. Drivers here, they're going to reach the top gear at least 3 times per lap on the front straight, down that moraine sweep, and then also heading down into Canada Corner, and 3 big heavy brake zones. That's turn 5, turn 8, and turn number 12. This track is fast, it is frantic, and it bites hard if you make a mistake.
And that's exactly the point I wanted to bring up, Ashley, is that we've already seen during testing and practice leading up to this weekend that a lot of drivers have figured out how much this place can bite. I mean, what are some of the trouble zones that the drivers need to watch out for here in qualifying as they try to push it to that limit?
Yeah, this track has a really good mix of both high-speed and low-speed corners, but yeah, there's not a ton of runoff here. If things do go wrong, it can definitely go really wrong really fast. And I mean, certainly we all like to talk about the kink. That is definitely a really high-speed, super dangerous corner, but there's quite a few corners fairly similar to that. I mean, turn 7 is quite like that, but ultimately, as long as you're just focusing on, you're driving your good brake zones and hitting your marks, things shouldn't go too awry. As a driver, you don't want to focus on going wrong, right? You want to focus on the things that are going right. So hopefully, once we've gotten those jitters out, we can start focusing forward from here.
And that's exactly what we're doing on track, as we've got our first flying laps of the race just starting. So we'll watch those sector times to see who is quick. Unser impressed yesterday, Joey. Looked quick in practice, but then Jens Hansen came in without as much time in the testing and the practice session, so he was a little bit on the back foot. This could be, though, a good opportunity for her to kind of take the fight to him.
It could be a fantastic opportunity, and looks like these cars are just kind of starting their fast laps right now. Remember, this is a 4+ mile circuit, so it takes about maybe 2.5, 3 minutes to get around on the out lap to start your first lap, and then these cars should be doing about 2:17s to 2:19s. I think that's kind of the range that we saw them in during the test practice sessions yesterday. So, yeah, I'm going to be curious if Lonnie's able to hang on, up top there, if Jens Hansen's going to give her a run for the money. But I think that we've seen that these 2 drivers in this Cayman GT4 field are usually towards the front of the pack, at least in the top 3.
Yeah, very much so, and they tend to be kind of mixed in with our Masters leader, Alain Scalzo. He often is kind of vying for that overall win, although isn't always as quick as them. Really, the big talk for him is he's got to bounce back. A pair of 7th places at VIR with 2, unfortunately, soured events that weekend. And that comes after he was on the podium every single race before that. So he still has a healthy lead because of that, Joey, but I can't imagine he can let that rot continue.
Well, and talking about VIR and Scalzo specifically, I think it was just a little bit of a messy weekend, right? It wasn't anything necessarily that he did on track that was wrong, but there was a couple of penalties early in practice, and then also I think went off track or had an issue in race number 2 that kind of brought him in under that yellow flag as well. So I think when we're talking about this orange and blue car right here of Scalzo, let's get through a clean weekend at Road America. We know we've got the performance. We know we've got the speed. We just need to get our ducks in a row, and the results will come.
Absolutely. Getting beautiful overhead shots here with the Yokohama blimp, and coming down into turn 3 here for Scalzo. The moraine sweep, Ashley, going to be fun when we get to the racing itself. Usually it's turn 1 that everybody watches out for on the first lap of most tracks. 5, I'm always keeping an eye out there because I feel like we get the most action coming into here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, turn 5, you're coming off a really long straightaway, big brake zone, so it's definitely a good opportunity to pass there. But I mean, watching some racing last weekend during the IMSA event, there were quite a few passes being made almost everywhere. I saw a pass around the outside of turn 3 as well. So the cool thing about this sector of corners, turn 5 and turn 6, is even if you can just get alongside someone and you have that inside line going into 6, you generally have the preferred line. So it's definitely a good track for competitive racing.
Yeah, we tend to see some great back and forth action. The long straights tend to give some slipstreaming if the drivers are able to get that run off the corner. Definitely its own beast out here as we watch them head downhill through the carousel. This is definitely one of those spots, Joey, where I feel like sometimes you don't get a sense of that elevation change until you go here to the kink and look at that viewing area and see how big of a drop-off it's been since that point earlier in the lap.
Yeah, the carousel, you start way up top and it just continues all the way down. It's one of these corners that's downhill. It does have just a little bit of camber to it, but as you drive, it really seems more like a flat corner than anything. And I guess there really is 3 parts to that carousel. You got to drive it pretty hard going into it, and then the driver really has to manage the car balance through the middle and kind of pick up that exit off of the carousel. We see a little bit of dirt coming off of the track here. I think that was just a car running wide at the top of the hill at turn 13, so that's all good there. But back to talking about the carousel, you really have to balance it through the middle. And then about 3/4 of the way through, the track starts to come to you a little bit. You got to have the car pointed in the right direction. You can commit to throttle. And then, of course, you get the compression at exit, which tends to give the car that little bit of grip to squirt out of the corner. But it is a very long, fast, steep corner that leads into another extremely high commitment turn.
Well, we have all 15 cars having put a lap in, so we've got something representative. And the thing that really strikes me is just now, Scalzo has separated Hansen and Unser. So top 3 have about 6/10 between them, but Tom Kopczynski only a thousandth of a second behind Lonnie Unser. So he could try and catch up to Scalzo here. He is very much in the mix. Anicheki pushed down a little bit by some of those Masters drivers. She's honestly, unfortunately, been a little bit on recovery this weekend. You may notice that her car is a bit different. She has lost her chassis in that GT4 Cayman due to an incident and has swapped over into her dad's chassis. So we don't have Greg Checky here for the racing this weekend, but he's seen the importance of his daughter out there and wants to get her an opportunity here, Ashley, and she is pushing. She hasn't been slowed down by that incident.
I kind of love to see it, though, that she doesn't have much fear after that incident took place. And, you know, she's fairly new to sports car racing, and we saw her battling for the front. So, I mean, ultimately, when you're racing and driving at the limit of these cars, sometimes mistakes happen, and you just have to get back in and get back to driving again. So kudos to her dad for lending her car, and kudos to her for pushing so hard after that incident took place.
If you had been watching with the USA West Series, the previous round here in Sprint Challenge, not in the North America, which we're currently watching, she kind of showed up at a one-off, since that is close to where she's based, and took her first ever Sprint Challenge win in Pro-Am. So she is coming off a bit of a high. She's riding some good momentum. Let's see if she can carry it on throughout this weekend. That last lap for her, unfortunately, did not take her up the order. And Kopczynski, though, I just noticed, Joey, he has now jumped up into second and is just behind Lonnie Unser. So Tom very fast, and now Pelichewski overtakes him.
Yeah, I see Pelichewski slotted into that, call it second place in the Masters class. Dan Ammon is in 4th place, just a couple spots behind there. And something else I just saw pop up on the board is that our provisional pole sitter in Pro-Am, that's Jens Hansen, has already pulled it into pit lane. We still have 15 minutes remaining here in this qualifying session, but the weather, it's going to be hot and humid today. I have a feeling that he wants to save some tires for the race. I think that's a good call, especially with his kind of performance gap between the next Pro-Am car.
Well, talking on performances, since we've been kind of going over what drivers have been up to, Tom actually had his best average finish of the weekend last weekend at VIR, or the previous weekend, I should say, as it has been a bit since we were there. But a 2nd and a 4th for him was a very good showing. He's kind of been off and on most weekends, where he has a good result, and then the other one maybe not as great, but seems to have found a good run there. We'll see whether or not he keeps that up this time as we watch the plunge down into turn 3, into the ever-important Moraine sweep, trying to race towards turn 5.
Something to note, I thought that these cars, were turning more like 17s, 217s in practice yesterday, but one neat thing about Sprint Challenge here is that we don't have any BOP with these Cayman GT4 cars. You compare them to, call it a different series, and looks like we might have a yellow flag somewhere, but in these other series, they're typically, regulated a little bit more, but here in Sprint Challenge, they are completely released, and they are very fast out here, as it looks like we've got a red flag.
Yes, something major has happened. Car 26 off course, turn 10.
There it is. Is this Scalzo here? This is at the exit of the carousel.
Yeah, that is. Uh-oh.
And I think the good part about this, though, is that there's no wall anywhere in sight here. And Ashley, you know how fast you are coming down at the end of the carousel there. If you don't have the car pointed the right direction, you can certainly get out in the weeds out there and out for a ride.
Yeah, the carousel has a few different kind of angles to the pavement as you get a little bit wider throughout the corner. So if you went in there a hair too fast and the car started to wash a little bit wide, the road actually kind of starts to fall away from you there. So once that starts to happen, it's really hard to bring the car back down to the inside, and sometimes it will suck you right off the track. And as soon as your outside tire touches that grass, you get sucked off track really, really fast.
And to your point, Ashley, it looks like that's probably exactly what happened. It looks like he was probably in the gravel for a while, which means he might have just been on the outside of that corner and eventually made his way all the way out there.
The tire tracks definitely tell the tale there. The safety crew already there. Road America with an excellent safety crew to kind of clean up problems. But this is good news, bad news if you're Elaine Scalzo. He has not hit anything, so the car should be okay. Just get the gravel out of it. But if you bring out the red flag, your 2 fastest laps will get deleted. I don't know if he's done more than 2 laps.
Yeah, and back to what I was saying earlier. Remember, we just came off of that VIR weekend where I think that Scalzo always has the speed and always has the performance capability in the car. It's just that sometimes these little itty-bitty mistakes turn into larger mistakes, and they can set you back for the weekend. This is certainly one of those.
Well, and Ashley, this does take away time from these other cars. However, I got to imagine tires are going to cool down during this time. Does this give a little bit of a second life maybe to find something else in the car?
I'm sure there will be a few drivers going back out there to try to pull another lap or 2. However, if you've already done your 2 flyers, usually you want to try to save the tire for the race. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure there'll be a few drivers that do go back out if there is enough time at the end.
Yeah, that's a good point that they have to use this for that first race. So might be important to save that rubber. But as you can see by our timing tower, everybody but Scalzo has made it back to pits as they are required during the red flag. So now we just wait patiently to see whether or not that car will emerge quickly.
I'm just pointing out on our screens here on pit lane that these teams are doing the perfect thing for their drivers. They're going out and they're checking the tire pressures, and I'm sure they're on the radio saying, hey, what's the attitude of the car? Do you need a little bit more front end? Are you getting too loose on corner exit? Do we need to maybe take some PSI out of the rear tires? There's very limited adjustments that you can do on the car once you kind of get it to this point in the weekend. But these teams making sure they're ready to go back out just in case that driver does want to try to set another lap time.
Yeah, and I had mentioned earlier, you see that yellow machine that is normally Greg Checky. That is Anna's car this weekend if you're looking for reference out there. We do see just a little hint of another driver that was here for the first time back in VAR, Dominique Lecoq. Had a chance to actually talk with him. Obviously, he's new to the series, but has raced Porsches before. Looks like you spotted Anna Checky getting out of the car there, Joey.
Yeah, and it's just going back to what Ashley was saying. I think that this is kind of the perfect forced opportunity for the drivers to evaluate, hey, do you think you can actually go faster, or is it better to save these tires for the race? The driver always thinks that they can go faster, but the bottom line is that there's a performance advantage to brand new sticker tires, and most of the time it's worn off in that first heat cycle or at least the first handful of laps.
For our audience, you've heard us mentioning the Pro-Am versus the Masters classes. They're all in the same car. The only difference is, of course, that they have different licenses. The Masters is for drivers who are 50 years or older or will turn 50 during the course of the season. So the white boxes that you see on the tower, those are the Pro-Am, and then, of course, the Masters are the yellow boxes, as it says on the bottom. Thing that strikes me, Ashley, is that Anna getting out of the car, she's down in 7th. She's 3rd in class, so she did put a good time in, but she's got a lot of Masters cars that's going to be separating her. That looks like it's going to be a bit of a tough race.
Yeah, I mean, she might just have realized, like, hey, this is the most that I can get out of the car right now and the most I can get out of me. So maybe it was actually, a good choice for her personally and where she's at with her driving. So she is only racing the cars in the Pro-Am class. So maybe securing 3rd is, where she wants to be for this.
That's a good point. Yeah, just looking at big picture and collect those points for the weekend, not try and push things too hard.
And also, the race is a completely different story than qualifying. I know that we're so focused on the lap time here at qualifying, which we need to be, but Road America is a racer's track. There is tons of passing opportunities. So if you are confident in your racing ability, I think you're A-OK starting where Anna is.
So the championship over in that Pro-Am, very much going the way of Jens Hansen so far. He's taken all but 2 of the races in P1, so he's got a massive advantage at this point. However, Anna Czecki and Lonnie Unser have almost been locked in battle in this series. There's 30 points between them currently in the Pro-Am fight for P2 on the championship, and also in the female driver program as well. Now, unfortunately, we don't have Erica Hoffman here this weekend, so she's going to drop a little bit out of it, but she has also been extremely close with great finishes all year. Is only about 20 points, less than 20 points, 19 points off of Lonnie Unser for that P3 fight as well. Looks like, though, Ashley, we've got cars lined up at the end of pit lane, so I assume we're going to be getting back to green here. Yeah, actually, I see the flagman with the yellow up right now.
Yeah, it looks like Lonnie is right up front there, so she's going to try to go for that pole position. She's only 4/10 off of Hanston, so we'll see if she can pull it out here in these last couple minutes.
And more importantly, she's only a 10th off of Scalzo, who is not going to be out there, I assume, since he's just been recovered.
And I assume that lap time will probably go away once the session is officially over. And we do have a green flag, so the cars are released with, call it 6.5 minutes remaining. That is an important number out here because these outlaps, they're at least 2.5 minutes long, probably more like 3 minutes long. So these drivers realistically only have probably 1, maybe 2 laps if you're lined up first like Lonnie Unser was.
To your point about Scalzo, we just got a message from Race Control causing red flag during qualifying, loss of 2 fastest laps. So, yep, that's confirmation that while Scalzo is up there on the tower, we'll see that disappear soon enough. And Lonnie will be bumped up, at least for now, up onto the overall front row. That's going to be important for her to try and take that fight to Jens Hansen here today. But cars now just getting warmed up. A couple laps with less than 6 minutes left on the clock. They are allowed to finish that hot lap if they cross the line before the checkered flag comes out. But now the drivers are under the gun a little bit to try and get some more times in.
So this is coming down here into turn 8, a little bit deceiving from the overhead shot, but it is a steep downhill brake zone into that corner, and then we documented the carousel. Look at how long this, call it turn 9 and 10 combination is. You see her really to the shallow part of the inside of the racetrack. We heard Ashley saying if you get too far out there, you definitely lose a ton of grip and you risk kind of sliding out into the gravel out there. And then through the kink, one of the fastest corners in all of motorsports, especially here in North America, down this back straightaway here to the lowest part of this circuit. Canada corner, turn number 12, another one of these great passing opportunities. Looks like we've got 3 cars lined up here that are going to be taking this start of a new lap. Call it with about 4 minutes remaining. They might be able to get 2 in.
Yeah, he talked about how the kink was one of the fastest corners in North America. And it's not just that it's so fast, but there's so little runoff to the outside. And viewers might be wondering, well, why don't they extend that just to have a little bit of safety margin? Well, the answer is that they can't. There's actually train tracks on the other side of that. And they can't exactly move those train tracks easily. So they are limited on that space as to how far they can extend it. And they pretty much have moved it as far as they can. Plus, they did put safer barrier out there. There's a lot of measures they've tried to do to try and make it as safe as possible. But I'm glad that they've kept that challenge out there, Ashley, because I feel like it's one of the defining features of this track.
Yeah, I feel like having a little danger element to a racetrack makes it that much more exciting. There's definitely a few tracks out there that have added a ton more runoff, and it's almost, I guess, taken that risk factor away from the track. So I kind of like that they leave it this way.
Agreed. 100% agreed. I think that there needs to be that danger factor, and there needs to be that bite factor that you can't just go and do whatever you want out there.
Yeah, you can push the limit there, but it's gonna show you where it is as soon as you overstep those bounds. This is up through turn 6 and through the hurry downs. Joey was talking about big plunge as we watch Lonnie Unser try to see if she can move herself up to pole position now and chase down those 0.365 tenths of a second here in this lap. But 3 minutes left to go, so not much time for it at this stage. We are missing a couple drivers. Looks like Hansen is elected to stay in. Tom Kopczynski has not come out on the track. We already know Anna Checki is out of the car. Dominique Lecoq is still sitting in pit lane. So is Gary Buffkin and Paul Bonderson.
As we watch these 3 cars go down here through the kink, I'm not seeing any personal best or fastest sector times right now. And in fact, I think that Lonnie's signaling that she is lifting off of the gas. So she is going to let one of these cars by here, tuck back in line. And I bet you if she's going to try to line up for another lap, at least I would want to let this second car by as well. I think that's probably what she's going to plan to do.
I would imagine so. I do see some, it looks like good sector times for Brent Osmond, and not sure if that'll be an improvement, but currently sitting in 11th of the Masters. We got another yellow flag. So somebody's had an issue. We're trying to see if we could spot that out there on circuit while these cars come across the line.
Looks like we're back to green flag, so it might have just been a small off and then back on from another car.
Ooh, Brent's efforts have paid off. He's moved to 10th now in class. Paul Bonderson gets bumped to last on the field. So great job by Brent on that one.
And now, crucially, he's going to get out of the way, let these 2 other cars by. That was Unser, and then I couldn't make out the number on that orange one. I know it's not Scalzo out there, so going to have to be a little bit curious. Looks like it's the 86 car, which is Brent Asplund out there, who just put in that lap time you were mentioning.
Yeah. So that bright orange machine has gotten himself just one position higher. Ashley, how much of that sort of back and forth between drivers on these laps keeps in your mind, that sort of I scratch your back, you scratch mine, I got out of the way, so I get paid it back?
Yeah, when you're on track, especially during qualifying, there's no need to be racing each other or holding each other up. So the more courteous you can be, certainly it's something you remember the next time around. You want to make sure you're working with your competitors no matter what. But it's interesting. I'm looking at the sector times right now. So when you're driving during qualifying, you get a number on your dash of whether you're going faster on that lap or slower on that lap. So you can see live while you're in the car whether you're on a flyer or not. And it's interesting because once we went back out after that red flag, I'm not seeing anyone, like Joey was saying, go much faster than before. So if I was them, I would be bailing out of it and saving my tire for the race.
It's the tough conversation that a driver has to have with themselves and say, all right, my lap wasn't perfect, so I know that there's more lap time that I can gain out there. However, we still have the limit of grip, right? We had those brand new sticker tires most likely to start the session and to put that lap down. However, can you repeat that after a heat cycle after that yellow flag? It looks like we've got a checkered flag out, so these cars are officially going to be finishing their qualifying effort.
And unless Lonnie pulls something special out in this last sector, I'm not sure if this is going to be an improvement. She's just coming to the line now. and she does not improve. So a 2:16.1 is the best she'll see. Brent gets it down to a 2:19.4. Not an improvement actually on that lap for him either. And Bill Finnick crosses the line. Just maybe 3 or 4 more cars that are still out on track on a hot lap right now. But again, to reiterate what we've been saying, nobody's really showing any personal improvement in their sector times.
I think the only one to do it so far was Fennec. I guess Brett Asplund did it a little bit earlier as well. So those are the 2 cars that were able to improve their lap times. But to your point, Joe, Fennec didn't actually move up any positions. So he's still sitting back there in 9th in the Masters class.
And as the
Scalzo just put in a lap time. Scalzo just went back out there. Remember, he got 2 laps. Yes, I believe so. He just got a checkered flag, and he put down a 2:17.2. That could be just very, very important to start this thing.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I see the 26 out on our track map. So they managed to clean the car off, get him back out, and get him going. I guess that makes sense because if they just pulled him out of the gravel, they could have just sent him on his way. But, yeah, that was critical because definitely better than having to start from the very, very back of this field. Still, he will be slotted in 5th of his category. Let's go through the order of our qualifying now that everybody has crossed the line. Jens Hansen is your pole sitter with Lonnie Unser finishing 2nd. And Bill Pelichewski will take the Solaris flying lap for the Masters category on pole. Tom Kopczynski is going to be P2 for that class with Dan Ammon in 3rd. Anna Checki 3rd in her class will be 6th overall with Dominique Lecoq in 7th overall, Lane Scalzo 8th overall, and then Spencer Proper in 9th. Then it's Joe Rizzo in 10th, followed by Gary Buffkin in the 11th position. Reinhold Kranz will be in 12th. After that, it'll be Bill Finnick in 13th, Brent Asplund in 14th, and Paul Bonderson in 15th. More action to come today here for the Porsche Sprint Challenge. Don't go away as there's more to come at Road America.
It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy.
WeatherTech.
Order